Alrighty, Mariah. Hey, thank you so much for being on the show. You're somebody I wanted on the show for such a long time, and I'm so happy that we're finally making this happen here. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you. I'm excited to finally be here.
Yeah, I don't think you need an introduction, but accelerated automation. Well, for me personally, I want to thank you and acknowledge you right off the bat for someone who is always out there fighting for the agents, representing agents, and listening to their story, and someone that just has passion for the overall agent community's well-being. And you've personally been there for me during difficult times. And I just want to let you know that that's something that I highly respect for you, and not just from what you do skill-wise and talent-wise for the industry, but just for somebody who cares about the agency. So yeah, I'm really happy to have you on here and see what you've been up to. But first, why don't we just start off with how'd you get even started in the insurance industry? You could go all the way back as far as you can remember and share us how you ended up, where you are today as founder of Accelerated Automation.
Yes, of course. Well, thank you. And thank you for saying that, Dan. And yeah, the only reason I do any of this stuff is because of the agents. So how I got started in insurance was I was in the banking industry and I had been in doing that for about 5 years. I was a bank manager for JP Morgan Chase, and they were restructuring and automating, actually, now that I really think back on it, their branches and a lot of the systems that we used and technologies. They were coming out with cash recyclers and smart ATMs and Kaba locks and all of these different things that allowed us to be more efficient. But what that meant is that we were going to be operating with a much smaller staff in our locations. So I had, four bankers in my branch, and I think we had about 8 or 9 tellers. And I had an assistant manager when I took over my location. And after a few years, because they knew all this technology was coming, they were downsizing the staff. And
Hmm.
so as people would move or quit, we were not replacing roles. And what that led me to is to having 5 tellers and 2 bankers and no assistant manager and myself. And of course, as the manager, I was required to fill in all the gaps. So our branch wasn't going to get the automation technology for a few more years. And I had my 2 little children at home who were 2 and 3, and I was just working too much. Corporate America was demanding too much of me and too many hours. And it didn't seem like anything was ever good enough there. I could put in 70 hours a week and I wanted to take a day off, and that wasn't enough. How dare you take a day off, or how dare you have a personal day? And that pushed me to
Hmm.
start looking. So I started putting my resume out and looking for other opportunities. And I wanted something where I could have a family and have a say in my time. And I got recruited into insurance. A couple of different carriers reached out, but one of those was Farmers Insurance. And after about 6 months of, gathering information, I talked to other agents as well, people who've done it for a long time, new agents. I tried to do my due diligence, and I decided to go for it. So I ended up I tried to do my licensing while I was still a bank manager, and I
Hmm.
failed the test my first time. And I realized I can't do both. So I quit my job. I had 2 little kids at home. My husband was working, we had a mortgage, and I just quit my job. I started a scratch agency, got licensed, and then since then I've acquired 2 agencies and sold 2 agencies and moved my family from one state to another. We were moved from Washington to Idaho, and but that's how I got started. I was just pushed too far, and I wanted to have. I didn't want to work for my life. I wanted to have a life and work to support it, and that's how I got here.
Wow. That must have been a big decision because if you're a bank manager, that's salary that's guaranteed.
Yeah.
And is there anything about insurance that made you believe in yourself, or that you felt like this is going to be the right move or fit for you as an industry?
So, as an industry, when I got recruited, what I really liked about it was that it was education based. So, even in banking, what I always liked about, because I was a bank teller first, and then I was a personal banker, I was a commercial business banker helping small businesses, and then I was a bank manager. And I really liked that education piece, helping people understand finances better, understanding how to manage, their accounts and what type of accounts they should have. And so working with the client and educating them was always my favorite part of banking. And that's, of course, very similar in insurance. I was very lucky in the area that I got recruited and the district I was recruited into with farmers that they had an amazing trainer. I wasn't the district manager, but John Nichols was my trainer, and everything he taught us was education based. So how to, talk to people about their assets and their liabilities, their coverage limits. It was not quote on price and move on with your life. And so I actually got to talk to John, and through my research of the industry and the agents and learning how different people did business, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be an advisor and help people better protect themselves and kind of remove the unknown that goes with insurance.
Gotcha. And how long ago was this when you first started the insurance business?
2014 is when I got my license and became a scratch agent.
Gotcha. And then so you were agency owner for how many years? And tell us about, I mean, we're going to skip a lot of parts probably here, but how you became, founded, started automation, that transition, how that
Yeah,
happened.
so I was a scratch agent. I acquired an agency in Kelso, Washington. I sold that agency when we decided to move our family to Idaho, and I acquired another agency here in Idaho. And in that process, I had learned, kind of the basics with my first agency, and with my next agency, I was really motivated to grow it and scale quickly. And I was trying all sorts of different things. I actually invested in a marketing program at the time. I don't know if it's still around, but it was called Fully Covered. And it really taught how to like run ads on social media and partner with mortgage lenders and real estate agents. And so I got that program, fully committed to it. And I had more business coming in than I could handle with myself. And I just had one staff member when I first took over the agency. So we scaled up to 5 team members there. And I started having those team members really handle the day to day, the service and the sales. Through that time, so I was about 5 years into my career at this point. I started using a CRM. I stumbled upon it through social media and started using Agency Zoom. And I just saw the future of my agency in this tool. This is what I'm looking for. I can track what my team is doing. We can automate follow up. I can systematize my training and my processes and kind of duplicate myself much easier through this system. And so I really got obsessed with it, to be totally honest. Like I told my staff, I'm not answering questions about, billing. You have to handle the customers. I'm not quoting insurance policies. I did very few day-to-day operation pieces. I just dove into that system for an entire year and built it out. It was new. It was still like a baby. It was a startup company at that point. And I quickly became a beta tester with them and
Hmm.
helped them, create features and new ideas that would make the system work better. And I was sharing it all over social media. Like I said before, I liked in banking that I, could help people and educate them on things. I brought that into my insurance agency. And then when I find stuff that works in life, I just love to share. It's just part of how God made me. I like to share. So I was sharing it. I was like, this is great. Look what it's doing. I'm waking up in the morning to replies to emails that I didn't even have to physically send out. I didn't send the email. It went out as part of my automation or this text message. And I was engaging people, and it was easier to reach people. I had more opportunity to sell insurance and educate more people. And it was so exciting. So through sharing, people started asking me for help. They wanted to do the same thing. They wanted to implement the CRM. They wanted to learn it. Any CRM, I know this now, I didn't know this then, but any CRM is a massive learning curve. Any software platform that is robust and has a lot of features takes a long time to learn it. So I had told agents, no, 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 I don't have time. I can't help you. Then the founder of the company asked if I would help their users because they were feeling constraints as a startup company. And so I prayed about it for a long time. Like I said, I had, little kids and I had my insurance agency, and my goal was to have flexibility in my day. And so I finally just felt like this must be something the Lord is calling me to do because it's not going away. More and more people just kept
Hmm.
asking for help. And so I finally said yes. It started obviously just on my own, and that was 6 years ago. And now we have helped, approaching 800 agencies nationwide, and we've got like 17 team members, and so it's been a ride. But that's how we got.
Wow. Wow, that's an amazing story. But I do remember that first time I also found out what CRMs could do. lead management systems could do, and completely having that same feeling of like this is going to change everything and how you dove into it. So did you overlap your agency career with starting
Yeah.
accelerated automation?
Yeah, so I sold my agency a year and a half ago, so I had both for quite a
Okay.
while. It was very challenging to juggle both, and what I quickly learned is with insurance, there's a pretty standard roadmap, right? You sell policies that are created by carriers, and all the pricing is there, and then you're servicing your clients, and there's those consistencies, in every agency. And what we were building at Accelerated Automation, I had no roadmap for. There was no one to say, here's what you should do and not do, or here's your pricing or your products or your structures. And so we have learned a ton. We have changed a ton based on our agents' feedback, what people are asking for. That process has been very, very eye-opening to the different types of businesses that are out there. But yeah, we had both for a period of time, and it just wasn't sustainable. My kids are now 13 and 11, and I'm
Mhm.
just counting down the summers, right? We're down to single digits in the number of summers and the amount of time that we have left with them. So there was no way I was going to justify running two companies.
Yeah. And now, yeah, this project or this company is a true entrepreneurial journey here because, yeah, like you said, there's no like, pathway to how to build it. So, yeah, that must be super exciting. Now, were you always like into tech and stuff like that growing up or into technology, or did that come natural to you? Because takes a certain amount of skills and skill set to be able to learn how to use these things and then help other agents, which is so needed, especially in the insurance business, is because there's a little gap there with, especially some of the bigger agency or agents that's been around for a while. But is that something that you always had interest in, or do you feel like you're always good at that?
No, I wasn't. We had a really old computer growing up, as a kid, but I like, for example, I was like one of probably the last people in the world, it feels like at least, to join, social media like Facebook. I just fought it forever. And I'm a small town country girl. Like I ride horses and we love to camp and fish and so my hobbies don't align really with technology. But like I said, when I got the tool in my business, and I had exposure to technology. I worked at like I said, I worked at actually my first bank job was Wells Fargo, and their technology was really antiquated. They had a lot of green screens and all sorts of things. And then I went to Chase, and everything was very tech centered. And that was really probably my first big exposure to technology within a work environment, beyond just simple things like email and whatnot. Um, but I just saw what I knew my business needed in those tools, and like I said, I just got obsessed. So I know now that things like organizations and processes and expectations and consistency are part of how I'm wired, and I think that's why I like technology so much. It's very repeatable. I like being able to build things once and have it work for me every single day. Even though sometimes you have to rebuild and adjust as times change. But yeah, it wasn't something I was interested in as a kid, but once I got into it, I love technology and new tools. And now with AI, it's a whole new rabbit hole.
Yeah, which I can't wait to talk to you about, but I totally agree with you. Like it's such a great use of time for work if you work on something. And it's not like selling one policy. It's like, well, you work on something and that amount of work could help you for years. And I always thought like this is so great because this tool it could do the work of so many employees. Like the outreach it could do, and it never calls in sick, and
Yeah.
it's so dependable. And I was like, wow, I felt like overnight I just gained like staff or yeah, in a way it's already like AI before it was AI, the automation. I feel like there's a lot of similarities there, but why don't we just take a little bit of time with accelerated automation? So do you basically help out people from scratch, like how to build it, or do you have templates already built out that they kind of like can use, or what type of how do you help out agents?
Well, the answer to all of those is yes. Now we have done and not done a variety of different things over the years. But today, we've really kind of restructured how we help agents and taken all of the things that we've learned over the last 6 years and compiled it into two different avenues. One, which is very customized. We actually work with the agency and the staff for an entire year, and we call that service our tech ops service. And then the other one is kind of the other piece you alluded to, which is more templated, more pre-built. So we really find that agencies who aren't used to having standard operating procedures or using their technology to really map out their procedures or processes, they do very, very well in our pre-built, pre-done. We just call it our done for you services because it really gets your feet wet. It gets you used to a standard procedure, what that looks like, how it would be structured, how to manage to it, and also monitor it. So you're not having to conceptualize what do all these processes need to look like. That can be really challenging. In the insurance industry, we've learned that most agents have more of a sales persona, if you will, like their personality
Yep.
falls more into the sales bucket than it does into the operations and procedures bucket. And those are very different personalities. So
Yeah.
people who are wonderful at networking and selling rarely, sometimes, but rarely are very strong in organization and operations. And so because of that, it can be hard to conceptualize, well, what even should my process be? Or what are the stages? And sometimes the details get glossed over. So having something that is pre-built and structured that you can start learning, you can like kind of learn to walk before you start running. A lot of agents then, after they get those basic fundamentals, then want to start customizing. They start to see what's possible and they want it to get really custom for their agencies.
Okay, awesome. So you covered all like agents that are just starting off with it, and then I know you work with some huge agencies too. So that's
Yeah.
cool that you can help out both sides of the spectrum there. What about for the beginners? What are some, you know, automation benefits? It's kind of a basic question that you think are like a must, and then we'll lead into some underrated stuff like, that you're helping agents, bigger agents do. Like, what are some features and things like that that you've discovered that have been game changers for agencies?
Yeah, so from the basic perspective, I would say that even in today, in 2025, there's a lot of agencies that still don't have some of the foundational pieces that you would need to have in place to start. And that would be, something as basic, and this doesn't have to do with, this is a part of automation, but as far as like their websites for insurance agents are surprisingly outdated still, and not very functional. It's more of like a fancy business card. We see a lot of that when we're reviewing agencies and their entire technology stack. So I would say a really good functional website. And when I say functional, things like digital intake forms captured, where you can capture information for people who are trying to get in touch with you, and even the ability to do things like collect declarations pages. There's lots of tools for that, but those make things very easy for consumers. So I would say a lot of the basics should start at a website that at least has digital contact forms. Those digital contact forms should then show up in your systems, whether it's your CRM or your AMS, depending on what you have. At this point in the game, I am a very firm believer that every agency needs to have an AMS and a CRM. Sorry. They should have both of those tools because when you put them together, you really have an amazing technology stack, and your team can do so much more. CRMs have a lot more of the automation capabilities than the AMS systems do. So once you're capturing information, it should go into those platforms wherever your team is going to work it. I think something when we think long term in some of these bigger agencies and with AI moving as fast as it is, we have to get businesses of all kinds to realize that your data that is inside of your system is going to be extremely valuable. And it needs to be data that can be read by AI, right? So if you're an agency who is still writing down information when the phone rings on a piece of paper, that data is lost to your systems. So those really need to be in digital intake forms. There's a variety of choices out there, some that are very specific to insurance and some that are not industry specific at all. take your pick, whichever you want to use. Some are better than others, but having them is better than paper, 100%, like always.
Mhm.
So make sure that that data is flowing into your CRM or your AMS that's usable. It's fields and it's text and type that AI could actually read. This is going to be really, really important um, in the next 3, 5, 10 years down the road. So making sure that happens, those are some of the fundamentals. And then from there, any agency should be really thinking about what is that journey after you have an opportunity. Now we're obviously talking sales, there's, customer service journeys as well. But once you have that lead and it's assigned to somebody and somebody's working it, what happens with it next? And when I ask agencies questions, they most of the time say that everybody has a little bit of a different process. Well, that's very, very difficult to track. How do you know what's
Mm.
working? Right, Dan, I see your, reels and everything on social media all the time of your top producers, and you're giving out trophies and they're getting awarded, in front of their peers, which is amazing. And you're able to know what's making that person successful because you have systems in place and you can monitor their activities. And then you can take those best practices and apply them to the rest of the staff. So the ability to be able to monitor the journey, what should that prospect actually experience from your staff? And then how is that information being monitored so that you can duplicate your success is a huge reason to have a CRM. And that's part of those foundational pieces that every agency should have.
Wow, you nailed it there. That's great stuff, Maria. We should clip that part because that was very valuable information there. Yeah, duplicate success. It's kind of like if, we had a restaurant and every person made their burgers different. Like there's no consistency there, and like the customers wouldn't like it, and the owner wouldn't like it too because the results are going to be so varied based on not having systems or journeys. So yeah, that is the best part, I believe, with automation is that once you know what works by testing, then you could scale it by duplicating it, just repeating it, and that they don't have any typos, and it's just there's a lot of things that's working that you see great agents doing. And speaking of which, um, you worked, we've seen so many agents now,
Yeah.
agencies. What are some things, besides automations, or you could go to automation too, tech stack, or anything you could share about us where, since you have so much experience working with agents, it could be mindset, it could be wherever you want to go, that, you know, since this is the elite agent, talk, what do you notice with agents that are winning versus, agents that may not be getting to the levels that they may be aspiring to?
Yeah. The thing that is uh, very consistent across all top performing agencies is they're very intentional. And this might strike a chord, but they are not egotistical. They are always wanting to continue to learn. The agencies that we have dealt with who are improving and doing some amazing things when it comes to technology and AI and automation, and they're innovating. They are very, very intentional. They're looking forward in their business. The vast majority are not caught up in the day to day. There are still some agencies where the agency owner is in the day to day, depends on kind of what's going on. But most of them are leading from the front by looking forward and then looking at their business and reviewing numbers, providing coaching and support, and they're working through their staff. We see most agencies really struggle when they are the one pushing production. They are the one answering billing questions or texting an ID card, and they're caught up in the day to day. And I was definitely that agent for the majority of my career. It's very difficult to get out of. But once you hire well and you get out of that, you're able to look forward and you're able to be much more intentional. So those really highly successful agencies that we have been able to work with, they have a plan and they execute. They're very clear. They're very clear with their team on their plan and they monitor it and adjust it. These leadership pieces are what results in a very successful agency.
Nice. Yeah. Great points there. Something I want to kind of, you know, emphasize that I think is so true is that, especially with the technology and AI and everything changing so fast, not having an ego is more important than ever right now.
Oh yeah.
You know, because if you think you know it all right now, everything is changing so fast that the willingness to learn, that that's going to be such a difference maker moving on forward. So I'm glad that totally makes sense that when you see agents that are like, wow, this agent is so great, that totally makes sense that you notice that pattern of like, hey, they're willing to learn and they're willing to adapt. That totally makes sense. Yeah, yeah, great stuff there, Maria.
We're living in a world of adaptation, and anytime you think you know everything, today, tomorrow it's going to change. It really is moving so quickly, but what agents can do about that is just really make sure that your foundations, make sure you're well prepared. And with AI, it is really a matter of um, how can you overlay AI into what you're doing. So it needs to be condensed and integrated and usable data when we look at that going forward. Because whether anybody here listening to this likes it or not, it is going to play a role in the industry. It already is. The carriers are using it. Underwriting, claims, all of these things, they're all going to use AI. And even if you don't want to use it in your agency, it's going to be part of your life.
Yeah, it's kind of like the perfect industry for AI.
It
And
is.
it is definitely gonna, yeah, insurance is like the big data, industry. So yeah, let's talk about AI. I love it. From my experience, and let me know if I'm not up to date or doing something wrong here, but I know it's gonna take over, but maybe is it right now a little too early, like as far as like I've tried the automated text messaging and the chat and then like, voice and stuff like that. And it's just like, it's just not like quite there yet. I know it's gonna come, but what do you think about the timing of where we are? This is August of 2025. What have you seen it? What type of things have you seen it work? I've seen it done really well with transcribing sales calls, grading it, things like that. Um, but what are some useful ways to use it as of this day? Or do you feel like it could talk to people now at this point right now, or chat with text message automation? That's another level of, they send you a text automated and then they reply and then you reply to their replies. But I'm working on it all the time. That's like most of my mornings actually, and I'm just like a little frustrated, I guess you could say, with like the way I want it to be. Like, no, like, why are you asking them if they're married when they said, "Is your husband married?" That doesn't make sense. Come on, like, like some of these things are just like, I feel like it's sometimes I feel like it's not there. What's your thoughts on how it could help as of today?
Yeah, a lot of it depends on which tools you're using. So the large language models, really vary in how well they execute. There are, obviously ChatGPT, OpenAI, that's huge. It just came out with ChatGPT 5, which is a massive improvement over 4. For any of you guys who were using 4, I flat out stopped using it for months because it was hallucinating so much and doing things like you just mentioned, right? They said, why would you ask husband married? Doesn't make sense. So, and then there's, private large language models with different companies. So, I'll give you an example. We use a Voma to record all of our Zoom meetings and all that stuff. And it does call scoring and transcriptions and summaries, like you mentioned earlier. Well, they have their own large language model. They've built their own. It's not connected to ChatGPT. But for example, Microsoft Copilot, that is powered by ChatGPT, by OpenAI. They didn't build their own model. So when you're looking at AI solutions, you should be asking those questions. Is this your own model? Is it powered by a different large language model? And then how have they programmed that? So something like ChatGPT is used in everything, right? It's not specific. It doesn't have a lot of guardrails specifically around insurance and a lot of programming around that. Because people are using it in construction, they're using it to make recipes, they're using it for everything. So a lot of that really matters. Is it been trained and built and given the right information to work in our industry? That's really important in our industry because it's so regulated. So, for example, you mentioned conversational AI. That is a touchy one. There are two companies right now, specifically Gale and Sonnet, who are building conversational AI for the insurance and financial sectors. And that's phenomenal because they're teaching it and giving it guardrails to make sure it doesn't say things it's not allowed to. It can't have, licensed conversations. And something you should be looking for when you're asking questions about AI, like, is this your large language model? Did you build it? Is it powered by something else? You should also be asking about security. So you should be asking about the information that's fed into it. Is it ever going to be absorbed into their large language model for training? Something a lot of people don't realize is that in ChatGPT, if you have a professional account there and you cancel it, all of the information you've fed it will now be distributed out to their large language model. So there's security issues there. So you want to make sure that it is secure. You understand where the model is coming from, what it's been trained on, and that for our industry, that it is safe and industry specific. The conversational piece and most AI, all of these companies, they are putting the liability back on the user. So this is something that we talk about a lot here because I came from the banking industry and it's so heavily, audited. We had bank audits that would last days. I have PTSD from that because those were very, very stressful. You didn't sleep for days going through bank audits and all the compliance that you had to, make sure everything was correct. And so we're always looking for that when we're talking about automation and AI as well. And these companies will be able to they already can provide amazing tools for efficiency, but the risk is on the business owner, is on the agent. If your AI messes up and does something or says something it's not allowed to, and that particular prospect or customer decides to legally hold you responsible, then it's on you. You can't blame it on the AI company. So you want to check those contracts as well. So something as simple as asking, if your husband is married, that's silly, but giving poor advice, like if it actually gives advice on a coverage or says you have a coverage or your policy is active when it's not, then you're opened up to an E&O issue. So there's a lot going on with AI that business owners should be really considering before you turn it on and run it. I would also agree that today it's not perfect, but the speed at which it's moving, I think it's going to be perfect in less than 12 months. It's moving so fast. The difference between, ChatGPT 4 and 5 is a really good illustration of that. If you haven't used them or didn't use both, it might be hard to conceptualize that, but it is significantly better in so many ways. It's a little scary
Yeah,
sometimes.
it is. I noticed I talk to chat more than anybody in the anyone sometimes. So I feel like it's a great brainstorming tool too, and it's just really helps you do things that even with working with automation and that couldn't have like you couldn't things that take for months are taking hours right now. So yeah, I'm a true believer.
It's crazy.
Yeah. And I know when it's finally there and agents are using it for different ways, you'll probably be the first to know and to tell us. So please keep in touch and let me know what the next tool is that's going to help agents because just like automation changed the game, AI with automation, it's going to be something that's really going to help the agents get to a next level. Do you think so? Like some agencies will be so large just because of this, and there'll be such a huge gap between agents using it and not.
I really do. Because there's so many really large agents who have embraced it from day one, and they are acquiring agencies and not only acquiring, but just writing business at such a faster pace. I actually had a call today with an agent who was looking at our tech ops services, and they've gotten up to 18 million in premium, and they were saying that they have had to continue to hire staff, every time they kind of write another million in premium, and their margins are really tough, and so they're looking at tech to come in between. But they were telling me that it takes them 3 to 4 days to get a quote back to a customer, to a prospect, right? 3 to 4 days. And they've got a good sized team. There's 12 people on their team. And this is a very common theme across the entire industry. The amount of time, especially depending on your market, the amount of time it takes you just to execute into that. and get those quotes back that are accurate. Now, there's agencies out there who, are able to have a conversation, or even, so I'll give you a look into the future, some stuff that's happening now. AI that can have a conversation with somebody and gather the information. So it doesn't necessarily even need to be a person. This is where virtual employee companies or, overseas VA companies, they're having a hard time right now because they
Mm.
know this is coming and it's already here. But you could have an AI talk to a prospect and gather information, fill out a digital form, take that digital form with an AI and have a person. And actually, there's a new company called K that launched a year ago that even can do some of this input piece through their AI. It's new. I'm still playing with it, but it's very, very interesting. But today, you can have that digital information then copied and pasted within seconds into as many carriers as you want with just like maybe 3 or 4 clicks and pasting in all the information and hit generate. And now the only thing you're really waiting on then is the carrier to get the information back to you. And then you can then take that, of course, carrier information and deliver it to the client either through automation, through emails, or through phone calls, of course. But that process, that information gathering process, and the quoting process can take you, 5 minutes for a person, where it's normally taking an agency 45 minutes to quote a few carriers because of all the double entries. So that can happen now. And agencies who are manually doing this work and it's taking 3 or 4 days to get a quote back versus an agency who can do it same day within the hour, they are going to capture that business so much faster. I mean, we're in the have it now generation. Amazon, DoorDash, streaming, we don't have to wait for things. And the consumer is only going to get more and more and more used to that, and they're going to expect it. This is something that carriers are talking about, and MGAs, very large level, high level companies, they're talking about they have to be able to move quicker with the consumer, but also you have to add value, because if it is a transaction, meaning that it's just a price, then now you're just in the price game. And if everybody can move quick and all you're worried about is price, then it's a crapshoot. So you've got to use these tools to be able to move quickly and then spend the time with the client, educating them, selling them great coverage, building a relationship. And that combination, those agencies who make that combination, they're going to continue to kill it.
Boom. Wow, you just described the whole industry. The future of the industry right there. That's great stuff, Mariah. Yeah, because, especially if you're just an independent broker or any carrier you represent, the prices, you really can't control it. So
No,
really the only competition is, I used to say service, but now it's almost like speed,
it's experience.
because
It's the
experience, but
experience.
also experience that you bring. But like you said, no one's ever gonna want to go backwards, like, oh, I wish it would take longer. Like everybody's gonna want everything to be faster. You, so it's like how fast.
It's a good point.
No one's ever gonna say like, hey, I want my insurance to be more expensive and I want my agent to be slower responding. That'll never happen. It's a lot of things change in the world, but that's something that will never change. So the faster you could respond, the faster you could get accurate information. But at the end of the day, agents have to bind. The agents have to be the ones that go over the coverage. But I think like producers at agencies that provide these tools are going to be putting up such huge numbers because they could be so much more efficient because they don't have to do the info gathering part and put in the rater and then see which one's better. All that could be done, but the conversation, so they could spend more time talking coverage, protecting, and binding. So that combination of experience, knowledge, consultative approach, but the efficiency of how much people you could talk to in a day, yeah, that's going to be very exciting.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
definitely. It's I most of the agencies that I talk to, there are some that I talk to that are struggling for opportunity. But once you get your fundamental automation in place, things like cross-selling, winning back past customers, X-dating, your opportunities, those are very, very fundamental basics from a sales perspective that everybody should have in place. And if you don't, that's a great place to start. But once you have those in place, the agencies we work with don't have a problem with opportunity. They have a problem with capturing the opportunity. There's so much, running through the funnel, if you will, that's falling out that they're not capturing because of the speed opportunity. And that's where this is going to continue to shape our industry. You're going to be able to move faster. Prospects will expect you to move faster, and you're going to have to build that relationship. I was at an event last week with some amazing business owners and, wildly successful entrepreneurs. And one of them was Les Brown, and he is, such an icon. It was amazing to be able to hear him speak. He's 80 years old, sharp as a tack, and just stories forever. Man, this guy has lived quite the life. But he left us all with this message that relationships will be the currency of the future. So technology, there's going to be so much efficiency. And so relationships are what's going to really matter. And I completely agree with him from what we're seeing, because once agencies are able to spend more time with their clients, they have so much success. They're collecting reviews and testimonials and referrals, and these agencies who provide a really great experience and they are providing education and they're not just quoting numbers, they have more opportunity than they can capture.
Well, yeah, that's really all it's going to come down to. If the machines could do everything, the only thing the machines can't do is, well, we hope is not have relationships, like human. So that's the only thing
Yeah.
that we're left with.
Yeah, it is. It's
That's a good
interesting.
point.
Now, we're talking about all these concepts, and in some of these agencies, who've really adapted quickly, they have some of this stuff going. The majority of our industry doesn't. So, what I would like to help people remember is, don't get too scared or freaked out or feel like you're so far behind you can't start. Get started with some of those fundamentals and work on one thing at a time. One thing that we've learned over the last 6 years of working with business owners, because there's a big difference between running your own business and helping other people run theirs. We've been able to see
I
inside of so
bet.
many organizations, but you just have to start somewhere and be intentional and do one thing at a time. Don't go buy all the AI tools. Don't start buying, tools for the copy paste or the AI, conversational AI, or all of these different pieces like K and Kara and all these platforms that are out there. Just look at your workflow, look at your greatest need, and solve one problem at a time. And before you know it, you're going to look back in a couple of years and you'll have a completely different agency.
Yeah, start with accelerator automation. Talk to Mariah first, but that's great too that I noticed about some of the things you're talking about, just like you said right there, is that I feel like you truly do like to help agents, because you could be at a point in your career where you're like, hey, I just want to talk to the big ones, and they're the ones that, you know, frankly for me, I could be biased, but I could think like, hey, that could be more exciting, I could learn more. But you really do care about the everyday agent. Um, Talk to us about how it's probably just the way you are, but where that comes from, like, you don't like agents being taken advantage of. You speak out, even when um it could be risky. I don't know.
Is that what you wanted to say?
Huh?
Even when I shouldn't.
No, no. Even when it could be risky, like like it's just but you stand up for, agents, and just anything you could share about that, because that's something that all of us should be appreciating what you do.
So, thank you. And definitely, there's days where I wish I didn't speak out because it can be very difficult. And sometimes I get wonderful letters in my mailbox, because of it. But at the end of the day, I really have reflected on this a lot because my husband asks me this: why do I choose to be so outspoken when there's injustices that are happening to people? And I thought about it a lot. I was really bullied as a kid. And I went to a very, very small school, and I begged my parents to let me change schools, and I wasn't allowed. And I was bullied a lot. So I know what it feels like to be picked on or taken advantage of. And I think it just became part of who I am, that those things are not okay with me. God, the Lord was gracious enough to bless me with a personality where most of the people in my circle joke that I say the things that everybody else is thinking, right? I just say things that everybody else is thinking, and I just say them. Sometimes I probably need more of a filter than I have, but it just comes out. And as a kid, I was really told that that was a bad thing, that I shouldn't do that, and I should, be quiet and don't make waves. And now I know that is a talent, that is a gift that God gave me, because there has to be people in the world that are willing to stand up and say this is wrong and fight back, regardless of the risk to their own personal, situation. And it has put me in, bad positions many times. And I believe that the Lord is guiding my decision making process. And I am slower to react and, and pray about it and think about it now through, age and wisdom. But, when I worked in corporate America, it sucked the soul out of me. And I see, big organizations doing that to people and taking advantage of them because of the things that they don't know. And it's awful, and it keeps me up at night. It makes me worry. Those are the people that are at the top of my mind all the time when they're going through these struggles. And so that's why I want to speak out. I want to empower agency owners to understand that you own the business, the carriers own the policies, and you've got to control and own what you can, which is your data and your information, your prospects, your reputation, your client, your marketing. All of those things are things that you can own and have control over, regardless of the carriers you're writing for. Doesn't matter if your contracts change or you have to leave a carrier or you have to move states. You get to take all of that with you when you are set up properly. And so yeah, that's why, and I'm going to continue to do that.
Wow. Yeah, really powerful stuff, Mariah. But I think that's also going to be the reason why you're going to do great, continue to do great in this business is because, businesses, it's whoever cares most wins. And you care about all agents. I can't imagine what you do for the agents that, work with you. So that's a great way to build a business is through really caring about your customers. And that's, you know, something that's naturally comes to you. I could see that. And yeah, it's just great to see these voices, in a way like protecting us. So yeah, again, I started with this in the beginning, but just want to end with one more. Yeah, just thank you for all you do for the agents. And yeah, any last things you want to share maybe? Well, first of all, I'll put any link, the descriptions of your website and stuff like that on the YouTube description so they can find you. But Mariah Gates, is Facebook mostly the one or that you're most
Facebook,
active in? Or?
LinkedIn, we're on everything. Websites acceleratedautomation.net, because someone else stole .com, so we have to be .net.
Mhm.
But
No
um,
biggie.
but yeah, that's how you would reach us, and you can reach out to me directly. Yeah, through social media. I'm kind of all over the place there.
All right. Great. And yeah, I know you got some exciting things coming along the way too, so can't wait to hear from you and see what you're up to, keep in touch with you. And you've been there for me whenever when I was in a situation where I needed some advice. So please let me know if there's anything I could do to you. Hopefully, yeah, this episode could bring some awareness of all the great things you do for us agents. But yeah, Mariah, I really appreciate your time. And once again, what you do for our agents. And yeah, just can't wait to see where this business is going to take you. You know, just getting off to such a great start and having all these relationships now, it's going to be exciting career that I'm going to be witnessing. So looking forward to seeing you continue to rise in the business and yeah, helping each other out when we can.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.